How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Samach, Daf 60 of Masechta Gittin. Friends, I'm in a new location. Finally left my house after a while, and here I am, out in the nature. Look at me, Mr. Nature. We'll see. Hopefully I won't get too many bites in nature. It's very nice over here, and we're gonna learn Daf Samach of Masechta Gittin. I reviewed this Daf on the airplane. Hopefully I did a good enough job. There was a little fella who, I think I'm scarred for life from I was at a supermarket today. We had to buy food, and there was some young fella who was, screaming, and I was like, no, I can't. I'm like, I think I've been permanently scarred from the shrieks of that young fella on the airplane. But there's not much you can do, It's a young fella, but wow, the levels of shriek and the dedicate, that was stark, man. I'd say for about 3 out of the 12 hours, that young fellow was just letting it go. Let's go weiter. Alright, Daf Samach of Masechta Gittin. Where are we? So we're going to start in Daf Nun Testament Beis, all the way at the bottom. Hopefully this is going to work out and everything. You hear the birds and everything? There's birds over here. I'm out in nature. It's very nice in nature, but I got a lot to do. I don't usually find myself in nature, but it's very nice. All right, I don't have my earplugs in because I'm out in nature. I thought I wouldn't need them, but I think maybe I'm not used to hearing myself without earplugs. Let's go weiter. I'm stalling. Okay, Daf Nun Testament Beis. What's that? Is nature trying to tell me something? Maybe. Okay. Bottom line of Daf Nun Testament Beis. Okay, so the people of the Galilee sent to Reb Chelbo, Achrein mi Korin. So if it's Shabbos, so the first aliyah goes to the Kohen, the second aliyah goes to the Levi, the third aliyah goes to Yisrael, but there's another 4 aliyahs. What happens? So they haven't biyodeh. So Reb Chelbo said, ich weiß nicht. Also v'shayle the Yitzchak Nafcha. So Yitaka, when it has to be Yitzchak Nafcha, Amalei, Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha responded, Achrein Korin Talmidei Chacham Ma'amunin Parnosan Al Tzibur. Well, after, right, for the 4th aliyah comes a Talmid Chacham, who's a leader in the congregation. Right, Rashi quotes a Gemara from Shabbos that says it's a fellow sheshol and also dvar loch b'chol makom v'omer, a fellow who you can ask halachic kashas about anything, and he can give you an answer, give you a teretz. So these are people that you appoint as leaders of the community. And then the 5th aliyah would go to Talmidei Chacham who could be leaders of the public. And then the 6th aliyah goes to the children of these leaders of the public. And then finally, the last aliyah goes to the Gaboim and people like that, and any other person as well. That's the 7th aliyah. The people of the Galilee sent to Reb Chelbo. Interesting. Can you read in the synagogue from a chumash? What's a chumash? Meaning, of course, in general, in the synagogue we read from a Sefer Torah, which is the Chamisha Chumshei Torah, all 5 of the chumashim together. But what if it's only one of the chumashim, right? Bereshis, for example. Can you read Parshas Bereshis from a scroll that has only Bereshis but not the rest of the Torah? So, Lo Ava B'Yodeh, Reb Chelbo didn't know the answer. Also, Shaila Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha. So he went and he asked Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha, and Oichet Lo Ava B'Yodeh, he Oichet didn't know. Also, Shoil Bei Midrashe. So he went and he asked, I'm not sure who asked, Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha or Rabbi Chelbo, asked in the Beis HaMedrash, Ufashtu Ameho, Domer, Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani, Rabbi Yonasan, and they answered it from the following statement of Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani, Rabbi Yonasan. It says Rabbi Yochanan, but it's generally Rabbi Yonasan, and there's goes with Tzionim, there's a alternative version text that says Yonasan. Sefer Torah shechosu yireh achas, well, if you have a Sefer Torah that's missing even one column, ein koren bo, you can't read from it. So the implication being, well, if you have an entire Sefer Torah that's just missing one column, you cannot read from it. Well, then certainly a Chumash, which is but one book of 5 and it's missing 4 full books, certainly you cannot read from it in the synagogue. Velohi, but that's not really a good proof, because Hosam mechaser b'milsa. Look, a Sefer Torah that has all 5 books of Moses and missing one column is clearly a Sefer Torah that is lacking. Right? It wasn't by design that it's missing a column. It's a flaw, and that's a problem. But over here you're not missing anything. The intention was to write a Chumash, and it is a Chumash, so maybe that's okay. Rabbi Rav Yosef So Rabbi and Rav Yosef say that you don't read from a Chumash in the synagogue out of the honor of the congregation. Meaning, how come you're reading from a Chumash? Look, any congregation that could afford the Chamisha Chumash Torah, that can afford all 5 books of Moses, wouldn't be reading from a Chumash, right? You're reading from a Chumash because you can't afford to purchase a complete Sefer Torah, and therefore that is it's not kvod tzibur to show kind of sort of I don't know, it's kind of like ein anius b'makom hashirus, kilo. You're in the synagogue and you don't want to sort of be displaying sort of I don't know, a poor situation in the synagogue. You want to put your best foot forward, and you want to make sure that you can get a complete Sefer Torah. Rabbi Rav Yosef Da'amit Arvayu says, Rabbi Rav Yosef, I Sefer Aftarte, if you have oichet, a scroll that has only the Haftorah, right? The Haftorah, of course, is just excerpts from books of the prophets, but right, they are not full books. So what if you have a scroll that doesn't have the full books of the prophets, but just what's necessary to read the Haftorah? So also the Mikre Bey b'Shabbos, you cannot use such scrolls that have only the Haftorah in them, no more, no less. My time, how come? V'loniton likosev, because they are not allowed to be written down. You can't write down just those portions. You would have to write down the whole book. My Rav Ashi Omar l'taltule nami osur, and my Rav Ashi says not only can you not read from them, but you also, they're muksa, you can't move them. My time to holo chazin mikrobebel, because since you can't read from them, so you also can't move them because they're muksa. Velohi, but the Gemara says nisht shari l'taltule v'shari l'mikrebe, you can move them and you can all, right, they're not muksa, and you can also read from them on Shabbos. Velohi, what did I just say? Well, I think we just read this, right? I don't know. Wait, what? Yeah, I think we just read this. You can move it and you can read from it. Rabbi Yochanan Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish ma'ani b'sifra da'agadata b'shabbata, because after all, we know that Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish, they would learn from written books of agadata on Shabbos. V'halo nitan likasim. Now agadata, right? What does Rashi say? What does Rashi say? What does Rashi say? What does Rashi say? Does Rashi say anything? Well, Rashi says, "V'lo nitan likosev shum dvar Talmud v'alocha v'agode." Right? Of course, the only things that are allowed to be written down are Torah sheb'chsav. Torah sheb'al peh is not allowed to be written down. And yet, Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish on Shabbos, they would read from books that were written down of Agadata, of Agode. But I thought you can't write that down. Well, because the people were starting, right? Famously Rebbe wrote down the Mishnayos, the Shisha Sidrei Mishnah, because the people were starting to forget. And therefore Rebbe had to make a choice of that if you have to take a stance for God, that people were forgetting the Torah because they were no longer able to remember all of Torah Shebal Peh. So therefore he had to do something that was not allowed. Right? We're going to see on Samachum Beis that Torah Shebal Peh is not allowed to be written down. However, Rebbe had to do it because people were forgetting the Torah Shebal Peh. Right? They were no longer able to remember like they used to be able to. And therefore, so Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish would read from these books of Agadah on Shabbos because, because people were no longer able to remember everything, they were allowed to be written down. So here also, when it comes to the books of Haftorah, that not everybody can afford to write all of the prophets. So since they were not able to afford these Haftorah books, so it was allowed to write them down and to read from them on Shabbos. Abai asked the kasha from Rabba. Ma'u lichta from his Rebbe Rabba. Ma'u lichta of Megillah l'tinok l'slamid bo. Can you write down just like, Parshas Bereshis or Parshas Noach? Can you write that down for a young fellow so he can learn? Right? If you have a young little fellow and we want to teach him Parshas Noach, can you write down just Parshas Noach, or do you have to write down, at least the whole Chumash? Bereshis. So to boil them on the Omer, or I guess maybe Chamisha Chumshei Torah, maybe like the entire Torah you'd have to write down for this young fellow. To boil them on the Omer, Torah Megillah nitno. To boil them on the Omer, Torah Chasuma nitno. Now this is a question both of the opinion that the Torah was written sort of in different bits, right? So meaning as things occurred in the Torah, they were written down, culminating with Vizos HaBracha, when everything was, collectively written down over time. Or there's an opposing opinion, which is that no, nothing was written down until the very end, and at the very end, Moshe wrote down the whole Torah from Bereshis until the end of Vizos HaBracha, all in one fell swoop. So according to both of those opinions, we have this question of, so can you write down just an individual parsha for a young fellow to learn? So to boil them on the Omer, Torah Chasuma. Wait, did we just write this? Okay. Tiboil Mandomer Torah Megillah nitna. Tiboil Mandomer Torah Chasuma nitna. Tiboil Mandomer Megillah nitna. So it's a kasha, even according to the opinion who says that the Torah was given in, little slices. Given the Megillah nitna Kozvin. So do we say, well, since the Torah was written in chunks, so we can also write a chunk for a young fellow to learn? O Dilma, given the idbak. Or perhaps, Einachinami, the Torah was written in chunks, but once those chunks were ultimately connected, they must always remain connected, and you can't just write a parsha. Now you can also ask this kasha, according to the opinion who says that the Torah was written all together in one piece. So do we say that, well, since the Torah was all written together in one piece, you can't just write just a single chunk? Or maybe since it's impossible, we can, right? Meaning, you can't write a whole Sefer Torah for every young fellow who needs to study Chumash. So therefore, since it's not practical, maybe you can write down an individual parsha for a young fellow to learn. So Rabbah responded to Abaye, Ein Kosvin. You can't write down and just, one parsha for a young fellow to learn. How come the fish ain't kosvin? Because we don't write down individual parshas for young fellows to learn. Okay, right? You have to write. What does Rashi say? Fish ain't kosvin. That even according to the opinion who says that the Torah was initially written in different portions, in different chunks, but once they were pieced together ultimately, then they can no longer be separated. Eisve. Rabbi asked the kasha on Rabbah. Afi also saw tavla shozov sheparsha sota ksuva that Hilni Amalka made this tablet of gold, and the parsha sota was written on it. And the Kohanim, when they would, if they would have to write down the parsha of sota for a sota, they would write it down. They would look at the tablet with the parsha written on it, and they would then write down the parsha for themselves for the sota. Amr Shimon ben Lakish, Mishum B'yanai, says Shimon ben Lakish, Mishum B'yanai ba'alef beis. Meaning, so the question is, if we're saying that you cannot just write one section of the Torah, one Megillah of the Torah, so then how come Hilni Amalka was able to do it in the temple? So Mishum ben Lakish, Mishum B'yanai ba'alef beis. Well, she didn't write down the parsha regularly. She just wrote down Rashi Tevis, right, the beginnings of the words. That's what she wrote, but she didn't actually write a parsha. Eisvei, we have a kashik shihu kosev roe v'chosev mashu kosu b'tavla. So, but 1 second, we have a brisa that says that when the kohen would write down the parsha, he would look at the tablet and then write down the parsha. So it sounds like the tablet did have verbatim the psukim. So emo kima shekosu b'tavla. No, say that the kohen would look at the tablet and then write down like what was written in the tablet. Meaning, the tablet had the Rashi Tevis, and then from the Rashi Tevis, based on the Rashi Tevis, the kohen would then be able to write the actual psukim, but it wasn't the actual psukim written on the tablet. Eisvei, Abayas Akasha Terabo, Kshu Kosev Roy B'Tavla V'Chosev Mashu Kosu B'Tavla. That when the kohen would write, he would look at this tablet and write down what was written on the tablet, Ma'u Kosu B'Tavla, and what is written on the tablet, Im Shochav, Im Lo Shochav. It had the psukim, Im Shochav Ishosa, Im Lo Shochav Ishosa. If I'm not mistaken, that's the verses. So apparently the verses themselves were written on the tablet. So so it's b'seirugin. It's take, meaning it would say im shochav, and then it would sort of write sort of Rashi Tevis for the rest of the verse, and then im lo shochav, it would have like the first word, and then just kind of I think Rashi Tevis for the rest, if I'm not mistaken. And the rest of the pasuk would just be the Rashi Tevis, and then so that's what it means that it'd say im shochav, lo shochav. It means it would say im shochav, and then it would just have Rashi Tevis, right, like initials for the rest of the verse, and the same for im lo shochav. And the kohen would look at that and sort of that would be as like sort of a guidance, a guide for what to write, but it wouldn't have the entire parsha on there because you can't write the Torah. You can't just write a section of the Torah. Kitanoi, and this is machlokas tanoim. Can you write like just one parsha for a young fellow or not? Ein kozvin Megillah letinok l'slamid ba. You cannot write a Megillah, just one parsha for a tinok to learn. V'imdaito lahashlim mutter. But if he's just writing this parsha, but his intention is to continue after that, so you can give it to the kid, right? So if you write Bereshis, if you write the Chumash, if you write the Parshas Bereshis, and you're intending to go weiter, okay, so in the meantime you can give the Parshas Bereshis to this young fellow to learn from, as long as your intention is to keep moving. Rabbi Yehuda Omer says, Rabbi Yehuda, Bereshis ad dor hamabel b'Toras Kehanim. I'm sorry, Bereshis ad dor hamabel. Right, so when you have to write like a full topic, right? So in Bereshis you have to write until the Dora Mabel, so that's one complete topic. But Toras Kehanim ad Vayiba Yom Hashmini, and in Vayikra until Vayiba Yom Hashmini. So according to the Tana Kame, you can only allow a young fellow to read from a Megillah, just like one parsha, if you intend to continue writing more. And according to Rabbi Yehuda, as long as you write one complete topic of the sefer, so then you can give that to a child to study from. So B'Yechanan says in the name of a Bano, Torah Megillah Nitna, that the Torah was given in different sections, right? As each section occurred, it was written down, and ultimately at the end, you had all the pieces that you would put together. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, Ozo Marti, then I said, Hinei Bosi b'Megillas Sefer Kosovolei, that I came in with this Megillah Sefer, right, this book of Megillas. So different individual sections. Reb Shimon ben Lakish, Omer says, Reb Shimon ben Lakish, Torah Chasuma Nitna, Nish, the Torah was written in one fell swoop, in completion. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, Lakoach a Sefer a Torah azeh. Take this Sefer Torah and a complete Sefer Torah. V'idoch nam yoksiv lakoach. So according to Rabbi Yochanan, what about this lakoach Sefer Torah? How would the vasu de idbik? Yeah, after all the pieces were put together, so then it says, take this complete Sefer Torah. V'idoch nam yoksiv Megillas Sefer kosu volei. And Rish Lakish, what about the fact? What about this pasuk that talks about a Megillas Sefer? Ahu the Torah kula ikri Megillah. That's just a reference to the whole Torah, because the whole Torah is also called the Megillah. The Chsiv, as the pasuk says, "Vayomer Elai ma'at roeh," that it says in Zechariah that the Eibishter says to me, "What do you see?" Vayomer ani roeh Megillah ofe, and I said, "I see a flying Megillah," which is a reference to the Torah. Inami, alternatively, what does Rish Lakish do with the pasuk that mentions Megillah? It's like Reb Levi Dam Reb Levi Shmona Parshas Nemu B'Yom Shehukam Bo HaMishkan, that Reb Levi said that on interesting. Reb Levi said that on the day that the Mishkan was put up, was erected. So there were 8 parshas that were written on that day. So my understanding is that on that day there were 8 parshas that were written, and then all at the end of the Torah, when they wrote the Torah in one fell swoop, according to Rish Lakish, those specific parshas were already written. But other than that, they wrote the rest of the parshas all at once. Anyway, these are the 8 parshas Megillas that were written on that day. Parshas Kehanim, the parsha describing the halachos of the Kohanim. Where am I? Parshas Levim, the parsha discussing the halachos of the Levim. Parshas Tmeim, parshas of Tomei people, they have to be kept out of the Mishkan. Parshas Shulach Tmeim, and parsha of sending away the Tmeim. I'm sorry, the Parshas Tmeim was referring to the people who had to bring the Pesach Sheni, and the Parshas Shiluach Tmeim, so you have to send away Tmeim. And Parshas Achremos, the Parsha of Achremos, after Nadav and Avihu died in the Mishkan. Parshas Shesua Yain, and people who drink wine, that they have to stay out of the Mishkan. Parshas Neiris, and lighting the candles. Parshas Paraduma, and Paraduma. Those Parshas were written on the day that the Mishkan was built. And then, other than that though, the rest of the Torah, right, those are the Megillas that it's referring to, but the rest of the Torah then was written in one fell swoop. It's interesting. I think something happened to the video. I hope I got some kind of funny coloring, I think, but I hope, hopefully it's okay. It's very humid out here. And so maybe that's, hopefully that's not making any problems or anything. Amr Belozer, says Belozer, Teira rov bichsav umiut al peh. Oh, very interesting. So says Rabbi Elazar that the Torah, most of it is bichsav, meaning most of the Torah that we have is sort of expounding written verses. Umiut al peh, and only a minority of it is things that are halacha l'Moshe miSinai, that we're not necessarily learning out from psukim, but because it was halacha that was told to Moshe at Mount Sinai. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, Echtov lo rubei torasi, I'll write to him the majority of my Torah, kmo zar nechshavu, they were considered like foreigners. Okay, but the point is that it says Echtov lo rubei torasi, that most of my Torah will be written. Rabbi Yechanan Omar says, Rabbi Yechanan rov al peh, that the majority of the Torah is these halach l'Moshe miSinai, umiut bichsav, and only the minority of it is learned out from specific, from the psukim themselves. Shenemar ki al pi hadvar mo'ele, and it says, right, by the word of these things. So we see that the majority of the Torah is al peh, is these halach l'Moshe miSinai. B'idach nam yoksiv echtov lo rubei torasi, but Rabbi Yochanan, what about the pasuk that says echtov lo rubei torasi, I'll write down the majority of my Torah? Hahu asmui kamitamo. No, fakert, says Rabbi Yochanan. It's not saying that I will write down the majority of my Torah. It's saying, should I really write down the majority of my Torah? Echtov lo rubei torasi, should I really write down the majority of my Torah for these people? Alo kmo zar nechshavu. They've been considered like foreigners. They're not following my ways. Why should I write them down? So it's not saying that the majority was written down. It's saying dafka fakeret, that God doesn't want to write down the majority for these people. Midoch nam yoksiv Kalpi advar mo'ele. Rabbi Lozer, what about the pasuk that says al pi advar mo'ele? Homishum dit kife lemig marinu. That is because the reason why it says al pi advar mo'ele, that it's oral, is because those are the harder parts to learn. Because they're the harder parts to learn, so therefore that's why they are mentioned as being sort of the, I guess, majority of the Torah, but they're not really the majority, the minority, but it's harder to learn them. Torah Rabbi Yehuda bar Nachmani mitugmani de Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. So Rabbi Yehuda bar Nachmani, the interpreter of Rish Lakish, taught, it says, write down these, right? In the same pasuk it says, write down these words, ki alpi advar that based on the word of these things. So are they written or are they oral? So okay, it's that, how is this? Dvarim shebechsav iato rashi lo menapeh. The things, right, Torah shebechsav, the things that are written, you may not write them, you may not, you can't recite them by heart, right? You have to write them down. Dvarim shebal peh, and the parts of the Torah that are bal peh, that are orally transmitted, iato rashi lo menapeh, you cannot write them down. Rabbi Shmuel Tanu, start by the Beis Medrash, Rabbi Shmuel, Eile, right? It says, Kialpi advar, right? It says, Ksov l'chas advar ma'ele. Eile atakosef. If you write down these things, right? The written Torah is written via atakosef halachis, but you don't write down halachis. You don't write down Torah shebal peh. Only Torah shebechsav is allowed to be written. Amr Rabbi Yochanan, it says, Rabbi Yochanan likaris hakadosh baruch hu brisim Yisrael elo b'shvil dvarim shebal peh, that the Eibishter only made a covenant with the Yidden for the dvarim that are al peh, shenemar, as the pasuk says, ki al pi hadvarim ha'ele karati itcha bris v'Yisrael, that it's al pi, based on the orally transmitted Torah, that I've made a covenant with you and with Israel. Wow, very, very interesting stuff. It's very cool being out in nature, but let me tell you, nature can be very humid. All right. So you can make an Erev in, right, so you continue making the Erev in the house that you always made the Erev in, because of the Darkei Shalom and because of being peaceful, right? That if you always made the Erev, right, if you have an Erev Chatzeres, you have a bunch of houses that open into the same courtyards, you take some bread and you put it in one of the houses, and now it's like everybody's spending Shabbos in that house, so you can carry anywhere in the courtyard. So if they would traditionally always make the Erev in the house of a certain fellow, they should continue to do so in order to be peaceful. My taima, what new? Tell me, what is this all about? If it's because of honor, that we want to honor the fellow whose house the Erev has traditionally been in, so we don't want to move it elsewhere. But the shofar that they would blow, if I'm not mistaken, on Erev Shabbos, so people would know that it's Shabbos. So in Pumbedisa, initially it was by the house of Rabbi Yehuda, then when Rabbi was the Rosh Yeshiva, it was at his house. Rav Yosef, then when Rav Yosef was Rosh Yeshiva in Pumbedisa, it was at his house. And then Abai, and then to Rava, as they each became Rosh Yeshiva. So it doesn't seem to be an issue bouncing around over there from one house to the other, and it doesn't seem to be an issue of COVID. Rather, it's because of chashad. Friends, who could tell me what's because of a suspicion? What's the suspicion? The suspicion is that the Yentis in the bungalow colony, Shabbos afternoon, they go to get their Diet Coke and low-fat malno bread, and it just so happens to be that the house that they keep the Diet Coke and low-fat malno bread is also traditionally where the Erev would be. So now, always the Erev was at this house, and they go 1 week to get their Diet Coke, low-fat malno bread, and the Erev isn't there. And you know what the Yentis think? The Yentis think they didn't make an Erev. Oof. And boy, do they start talking. So again, in order to sort of keep the Yentis in check, we say just always keep the Erev in the same house, and just keep the Yentis just busy eating and drinking. Okay. Fine. Borshu Karv La'ama V'chulei. So the Mishnah had said that if you have a pit that is closest to the stream, so it gets filled up first, right? So this is talking about if you have a stream, and there were fields along the stream that would get irrigated by the stream, but people were, you always have to be concerned about what happens if the stream dries up for whatever reason. It's not a lot of rain, it's a dry summer, whatever it is. So they would fill up pits that in the event that there isn't enough water in the stream, they have reserves in the pits. So in order to fill up the pits, they would have to dam the stream. And so the thing is, if the people upstream dam the stream, the people downstream aren't getting water, and they're going to get upset. Hey, what are you doing? So basically they had to sort out in order so that people wouldn't fight. Who gets to dam the stream first? So it was stated that when it comes to the people that live on the river and have their fields on the river, so Rav says that the people downstream get to fill up their pits first. Whereas Shmuel says the people upstream would fill up their pits first. And we say, look, if they're able to fill up the pits without having to dam the stream, so who cares? Just let everybody fill up their pits. So kipligi misker vashgriye, where they argue is when you have to create a dam, right, to temporarily block the stream in order to fill up the pits. So Shmuel Amar Eloi Shasumai Beresha. Shmuel says that the people upstream could first fill up their pits. Because they say, look, we're closest to the source of the stream. Let us fill up our pits, and then whoever's next can fill up their pits. Whereas Rav says that the people downstream fill up their pits first. Because the people downstream will say, look, don't interrupt the people downstream will say to the people upstream, hey, just leave the stream alone. Don't interrupt anything. Don't create friction over here. Just let things be. And says Rav, the people downstream can first fill up their pits, and then people further upstream would be able to fill up their pits afterwards without causing any disturbance to the people downstream, or at least by then the people downstream will have their water in their pits. Tanan, we learn in our Mishnah, Bora Karov La'ama Mismale Rishon Pnei Darkei Shalom. So one second, our Mishnah says that the pit that is closest to the source of the stream, i.e. upstream, they can fill up first, right? To keep things peaceful, i.e. so that there's no fighting, because there's a predetermined order of who gets to fill up their pits first. So that's Akasha and Rav, who says that the people downstream fill up their pits first. Our Mishnah seems to be saying the people upstream fill up their pits first. So Tirgum Shmuel, Ali b'derab, be'ama misaleches, al pi boro. So Shmuel would explain according to Rav that when the Mishnah, right, so Rav says that the people downstream can fill up their pits first. But Shmuel explains for Rav that our Mishnah, where it says that the people upstream fill up their pits first, that's talking about when the person upstream, his pit is able to be filled up without having to dam the stream. But if you have to dam the stream, then the people downstream get to fill up their pits first. But if that's the case, what's the chiddush? If it can just get filled up without having to dam the stream, obviously let the people upstream fill up their pits. So well, maybe the people could say to the fellow upstream, saker misaker ve'ashki bihindozo. Well, maybe the people downstream can still say to the fellow upstream, still you need to sort of close off your pit, because it's, water is being diverted from the main flow of the stream into your pit. So maybe they'll say you have to sort of close off the pit and only allow in, an amount of water that you would sort of manually be able to dole into there. Kamaj Malon, that no, you can leave it be and let his pit fill up, even if it means that, maybe some water from the main stream is going to be diverted into his pit, it's okay. Since Rafuna by Tachlifa, since the halacha has not been concluded like either Rav or Shmuel, called the Olam Kvar, whoever is stronger wins. The people downstream are stronger than the people upstream, so then the people downstream will be able to fill up their pits first. If the people upstream are stronger than the people downstream, so then the people upstream will be able to fill up their pits first. Rav Shimi bar Ashi, also the comment Abaye. Rav Shimi bar Ashi came before Abaye, Omarle, he says, Tabaye los von mar beidno. He says, look, says Rav Shimi bar Ashi Tabaye, I want to have a chavrusa with you. Omarle, isli idno ledidi. But Abaye says, look, I need to spend this time learning by myself, or for myself. Vilos von mar belelio. So if Shimi bar Ashi persists, he says, so let's set up a chavrusa at night. Omarle, isli mai la ashkuye. But Abaye says, look, at night, Lemaisa, I have to water my field. So, Omarle, I have to irrigate my field. So, Omarle, so if Shimi bar Ashi says, look, Abaye, how about this? Ona mashkinole lemar maya bi mama. When you're having your daily seder, where you have to learn for yourself, I will go and water your fields for you. And then we can have a chavrusa at night, because your fields will have already been taken care of. So Abaye says, well, sure, if you're willing to irrigate my fields for me, I'd be very happy, and we can learn at night. So Azal Eloi, so then Rav Shimi bar Ashi proceeded, and he told the people upstream, Omerlu Tatoi Shosumaya Beresha. He said to the people upstream, don't dam the stream, because the people downstream can drink, right, can fill their pits first. Also the Tatoi, but then he went, right, like Shmuel says, then he went to the people downstream and said, the people downstream fill water first, that's like Rav. Also the Tatoi, but then he went to the people downstream, Amrulu, and said to them, Eloi Shosumaya Beresha, that the people upstream get to fill up their pits first, like Shmuel. So basically, Rav Shimi bar Ashi made a ploy where neither the people upstream nor the people downstream would be filling up their pits, and then he would be able to fill up his own pits, I imagine, in the middle. Sadahachi, Socher, Miskar, Va'ashke. And then Rav Shimi bar Ashi went, dammed the stream, and filled up his Abaye's pits for him. He also the comment Abaye, and then when Rav Shimi bar Ashi came to Abaye and told Abaye how, his genius scheme, Omarle, Abaye was incensed. Kvei treo vadatli, you paskin like both Rav and Shmuel in order to trick the people upstream and downstream out of being able to fill up their pits for your own benefit. V'lo ta'aminu Abaye leferi ta'ishata. And Abaye therefore refused to benefit and taste any of his fruits that season, because they were irrigated in a dishonest way by Rav Shimi bar Ashi. Hanu b'nei be'charmoch to ozu karu b'reisha d'shanvoso. So the people of a place called Charmoch, they went, and what they did was, they had a stream. I don't know, you have to really look at a diagram, it's like Erevin, but there was a stream that would go by their fields of their city. What they wanted to do is, they wanted to divert some of the water to also go, not just, on one side of their fields, but to go all the way around their fields as well, and get them on both sides of the field. So what they did is that when the stream would arrive at their town of Charmoch, they basically created a channel that would go around their city, so that the water would be diverted into that channel, and the water would then go, downstream on one side, and also around the town as well. So again, these people of Charmoch, the Azul Karu Beresha de Shambasa, and they built this additional channel. They split the channel, at the top of, basically when the Shanvasa stream reached their town, and then the Shanvasa would again, the diversion would reconnect after their town and go back to the mainstream. Also, Eloi the Kamid Abaye, but then the people who lived in the town right before Charmoch came to Abaye, and they said to him, Kamaskil. He says, and they say to Abaye, look, the people of Charmoch are diverting the water around their town at our expense, because they're slowing down the river. Right? Because what happens is, if the stream, when it gets to Charmoch now, splits, So that split kind of slows down while the water, right? The water has to kind of stop in order to split, or it gets kind of like, slowed down at the split, which means that the water would get backed up and overflow and flood the fields of the town before them. So Omar Lihu Karuba Adayu Tfei Porta. So Abai suggested, well, how about this? Why don't you just dig the stream a little bit deeper over there so that the water won't slow down? So Omar Amrulei Koyab Sheperin. But they said we can't do that, because if we do that, then if the water level of the stream recedes, well, then there won't be water it won't be high enough to irrigate our fields, and our fields will dry out, our fruits will dry out. So Abai says to the people of Chaimach, look, what you're doing is not okay. Go and get rid of this channel that you built. Friends, that was Daf Samach Masech Gittin. I hope you enjoyed. Peace out.